Everyone, this is Paul Garcia of AnalyzingTheLeague.com. I'm going to kind of give you a quick analysis of how to use this 2020 free agent database that I've created for this coming off season. I know in the past I've usually created a page where you can see all the free agents that are out there, but it's usually just their names and broken down by position. This year I'm going to try something a little different. I created a database where we're going to look at just some quick numbers for each player based off this season's data, and how you can basically interpret, what kind of player the team is signing, at least offensively, with in terms of the shooting numbers. So this is, again, only based on shooting. It doesn't really have a lot of defense, any defense actually built into this. So first, I'm going to go through kind of each column and what they all mean, and kind of how to use this tool. If you want, whenever you're looking at whether or not the team that you cheer for is going to sign a potential free agent, or if they do sign a free agent, what player they're getting in terms of their stats from last year. Now, I'm focusing first on the 8 teams that will not be participating in Orlando, and that's because their season is basically done at this point. So we kind of know who those 8 teams are. So all the free agents in this database are first those players that are the 8 teams that are not going to Orlando. Once we know who's making the playoffs and who's not, I'll start adding more free agents to this database from the teams that are in Orlando, as the summer goes along and the fall, as the season progresses. So the first thing you can do is when you go on this page on AnalyzingTheLeague.com, you can look at each player. The way I've done it is because, it's hard to evaluate specific positions that each player plays. So what I did was I just took each player's height and put them based on their height. So right now, we have 6 feet starting off, and then it goes all the way down to, let me see here. Yeah, it goes all the way down to 7 foot for now. So obviously if there's any taller players or shorter players, I'll add them to this list. And so again, it's broken down by height so that you kind of know a better understanding of how tall the players are. Next is their free agent status. And in the article for this database, you can kind of see what each meaning means. And they're pretty self-explanatory. NG means non-guaranteed. UFA means unrestricted free agent. RFA, restricted free agent. Some players have things like player options. Some teams have things like team options. So again, there's different. If you go down to the bottom of the article where this database is located, you'll be able to see what each of those specific abbreviations means for each player's status. Then of course we have the height, and as I mentioned, they fall into that category. Okay, so now I kind of want to go through each column here and explain, why I created this and kind of what it tells you about each player. So let's just look at Brandon Goodwin here. So we know he's a guard. He's 6 feet. And the first thing we have is RA percentage of shots. What does this mean? This means restricted area percentage of shots. So this is that area within the, this is the area within the restricted area, right in the paint. It's the closest area to the rim. And so as we can see, and what it means is percentage of shots means out of all the shots that he took this season, 2019-20, how many of his what percentage of his shots came from the restricted area? And we know that 25% of Goodwin's shots came from the restricted area. Now, typically for guards and smaller players, their numbers are going to be very very small in the restricted area, because a lot of guards don't attack the rim and they don't score most of their baskets from the inside. Now, when we go to the big men, as I scroll down, you're going to see that there's more majority of their shots are coming from the restricted area, because again, that's where bigs play closest to the rim. That's where they score from. So you'll see that their numbers increase. So again, the first area is restricted area percentage of shots. So we know that Goodwin shoots he doesn't shoot 25%. 25% of his shot attempts come from the restricted area. The next is the NRA percentage of shots, which means non-restricted area. This is typically like your floater range. It's still in the paint, but it's kind of outside the key. And this is where you see a lot more floaters or post hooks for players. And so here we see that Goodwin, 20% of his shots this season came from the non-restricted area. So he shoots about 20% of his shots are floaters. Now, let me go ahead and real quick explain the coloring, why there's different coloring for some of these different metrics. Okay, so blue, this is based on all the players in the database. So it'll basically change as more players get added to the database. Now, blue means that you as a player are not taking a lot of your shots from the restricted area. So blue means you're very cold, like you just don't attempt a lot of shots from there. So, and that's understandable for smaller players. So when we get to orange, means that at best, you do take a lot of your shots. So somebody like Damian Jones takes 85% of his shots from the restricted area because he's a big. Mitchell Robinson from the Knicks takes 96% of his shots at the rim because, again, he's a big. So that's kind of what the coloring means. White means about league average. So So we can see Bruce Brown here, 48% of his shots come from the restricted area. So he's about average. Now, again, these are only being decided on the players in this database. This is not for all NBA players. This is just for these players that are in this database. Next, we have, like I mentioned, the non-restricted area, the floater range. Now, the reason why this coloring is different, now this goes from green to about reddish or pink is the color, I guess you could say. Now, why did I change the colors here? Because what we notice is that these are low value shots. When we talk about high and low value shots, which this database does do, in the green here, restricted area is a very good shot. You want to take a shot there. A lot of times you're going to convert most of your attempts there because, again, it's the closest shot to the rim. It has a very high value of shot efficiency. The non-restricted area, the floater range, that's typically a bad shot for NBA players. You don't really want to shoot there because, again, it's not a good shot. Most players don't shoot well from that range. It's just a very low value shot. You're a certain distance away from the rim, but then you also have bigs, you have other guards in front of you, players trying to stop you from scoring. So there is a barrier there, and that's why that shot typically, in history, has a very low shot value. And so if you're in green, somebody like Devontae Graham here, he only 13% of his shots come from this floater range, and that's a good thing. You don't want him shooting a bunch of shots from this floater range. Whereas someone like Goodwin, he's 20% of his shots are coming from there, so that might be something where, like, you don't want him shooting that many shots from that area. So again, if they're in red or pinkish, it means that they're taking a lot of shots from that range. You don't really want to do that because, again, it's a low value shot. If they're in green, that's a good thing because it means they're making sure not to take a lot of shots from that range, which is a very low value shot. So they're taking some smart shots, should we say. Next, in this red is the MR percentage of shots, which means mid range. So again, we know that in today's NBA with analytics, the mid range is not considered a good shot. It's a very low value shot. And so again, just like the floater range, the mid range, if you're taking a lot of mid range shots, your color is gonna come out about red or pinkish. So like somebody like Kai Bowman, 23% of his shots are coming from the mid range. Not a good shot for him. Kyrie Thomas, same thing. Whereas somebody like Brandon Goodwin, he's not taking mid range shots, which is a good thing. So he's only 9% of his shots are coming from there. So it's going to highlight as a green color. Next, another high value shot is, of course, 3-pointers. We know that 3-pointers are worth a lot more because they're obviously we know the math, 3 is greater than 2. So it's a very high value shot, just like shots at the rim. So a 3-pointer is a good shot. You do want to shoot those. So for this one, I've gone back to the blue to orange color scheme. So what does that mean? So let's look at somebody like Langston Galloway, right? 61% of his shots come from the 3-point range, and that's a good thing. He's shooting threes, a very high value shot. Somebody like let's see here, Jeff Teague, only 24% of his shots are coming from 3, which is not great. I mean, for a guard, he actually shoots it pretty well, as I'm going to show you in a little bit, but he just doesn't take a lot of threes based on the data from this season. So you basically see typically what's going on there, and you will notice that with threes are the opposite of shots at the rim. So like the smaller players, typically a lot more of them, you're going to see more orange, where they're taking a lot of their shots from 3-point range because that's where they usually shoot from. And then as we go down to the bigs, unless they're stretch bigs, most bigs don't take a lot of their shots from 3. And, that's pretty typical unless they're stretch bigs, which there's not a lot of stretch bigs coming into this free agent class so far that I've been breaking down. So again, that's kind of, these are probably the first 4 important columns that you could look at when you're looking at this database. So like, let's say your team signs Denzel Valentine, okay? So or there's interest, right? And you want to just know, what kind of player is he offensively when it comes to shooting? Okay, so I know that he's 6'3", he's a restricted free agent, and I can immediately just by looking at this data, I can tell one thing: Denzel Valentine is a 3-point shooter. Now, obviously, if you watch Bulls games, you know that, but just look at this data. We know that 58% of his shots come from 3. He has a history of taking a little bit too much floaters, which obviously for his size, that's probably why he has to take that shot. We know that he doesn't get to the rim really at all because only 5% of his shots are coming from the rim. And he's also making a good decision not to take mid-range shots because we know mid-range shots are bad. So he's purposely not taking those. So again, that's the kind of player you're getting if you sign, Denzel Valentine, or if your team's looking at him. So again, that's how you can quickly use these 4 bars from what I feel the most crucial, because again, they kind of paint a picture really quickly of the kind of player that the team is signing or that's looking at signing when it comes to free agency. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of just go into each specific category and what they all mean, and they're pretty self-explanatory, and then what each one means. Okay, so again, RA again stands for restricted area, so it's the closest area to the rim. So these are good shots if your player's taking them. So again, so RA FGM just means restricted area field goals made. So we know that this season Brandon Goodwin made 27 shots near the rim. Restricted area field goals attempted just means that he attempted 47 total shots from there. This is obviously his field goal percentage from there, so that's 57% he shot from there. Now this is a one that I really focused on for like the last year and a half now. Ever since Kirk Goldsberry's book Sprawl Ball, I've really been impacted by learning about points per shot. And again, it's just a crucial metric to show how valuable are certain shots from certain locations. And so we know that, like I mentioned, the restricted area is a very valuable shot. The closer you're to the basket, the higher percentage you're going to make that shot, and it's worth a lot more points. I mean, the shot value is higher than other areas. So we know that typically you're going to see a lot of green bars because most players do shoot over 50% from the restricted area, because again, that's the closest area to the rim. So if you see a player who's not, that means that they're having a tough time scoring near the rim. So somebody like Devontae Graham is only getting 0.98 points per shot at the rim. Somebody like Caleb Martin. Okay, so again, that's something you can look at. You also have to look at the total number of attempts. So like somebody like Brandon Knight, he's only shooting 0.67 at the rim this season, but again, he only had 12 attempts. So like that's a very low sample size. So we know he didn't get a lot of minutes or a lot of time to shoot from that area, or he just didn't shoot from that area. So again, that's the restricted area. Again, your focus is to look at the players that are in the green because it means that they at least converted over 50% or better of their shots near the rim. And then pretty much the chart follows the same way along, but in the different areas. So again, NRA means non-restricted area, makes, attempts, field goal percentage. And again, you're going to very rarely see a lot of players in green here because, as I mentioned, this is just historically not a good shot. The floater range, there's not a lot of players who get into that green because, again, it's a hard shot to make for most players to shoot 50% or better from that range. Oh, look, actually, Denzel Valentine shot pretty well from there, for 1.02. So yeah, so you really have to look at the data. So like somebody like Valentine, you may say, like initially I said, oh, that's 25% of your shots come from the floater range. It's not a good thing, but for Valentine, it is a good thing because he's actually a good shooter from there. He makes 51% of his shots from there, 50.8%, which is worth 1.02 points. So you're okay with Valentine taking that shot, but you may not be okay with Jeff Teague taking that shot because he's only scoring 0.73 points per shot. So again, that's why it's also good to have this extra data because you can really validate or really dive into whether or not that's a good shot for the player. So again, that's just the non-restricted area. Next, let's go to the mid-range. Okay, we know the story behind the mid-range, not a good shot, blah, blah, blah. So here again is the makes. You have the attempts, you have the field goal percentage from mid-range, and then you have the points per shot. And just like the non-restricted area, the mid-range is a very low-value shot. So you're not going to see a lot of players within the green. Not a lot of players are good mid-range shooters. And so it's typically a shot you're not going to see a lot of success with. That's why we paint it as a very low efficiency shot. A lot of players don't take it. Teams don't want them taking it because it's not a good shot. Some players can make it, like Valentine here, shoots 52% on mid-range. We have Michael Mulder here who shoots 67%. Very, very small sample size, only 3 shots that he attempted. So again, you really have to look at the sample size of how many shots are they taking and compare that to as well. So again, that's the mid-range. And then of course, the last area is the 3-pointer. It's in green again, because it is a high value shot, very good shot for players to take. So going back to Goodwin, he made 26 this year. He attempted 87. It means he shot 29.9%, which means for this season, he struggles at the 3-point line. He's only making 0.90 points per shot. And you want to, again, get over 1 point per shot for every shot you take. So typically you're going to see a lot more success at 3 for players that are pretty good at shooting the 3. So Devontae Graham makes 37% of his threes, which is 1.12. Like I mentioned, Langston Galloway shoots almost 40%, which is 1.20. So again, these are ways that you can see, how players shot this year. And again, you really just have to dive into the data of, what was the sample size for those players. Some players have a lot of shots they took, some have none. If you see these little div _0 little things, don't worry about that. That just means that player didn't have any data for that type of shot. So somebody like Jared Vanderbilt here, he didn't take any shots at all in the non-restricted area, and then also for the mid-range, he didn't take any shots, and he really didn't shoot at all because he didn't play a lot. You can tell here by the data because his numbers are so low. So again, this is just a quick little video of how to kind of show you how to use this data. So again, it's just a quick way of when your team is, reportedly interested in a player or they sign a player, you can just pull this up, look for the player. Again, just go by their height, go look at, what, where they're at, and then try and see, what kind of player did that team just sign offensively? Or do they take a lot of threes? Do they shoot more at the rim? Are they a high mid-range shooting three? And then also you can look at the efficiency. How good are they at shooting near the rim? How good are they at shooting three based on this year's data? So again, I'll keep expanding this, with more players as those teams that do not make the playoffs in Orlando start, as we start seeing that who's not going to be in there. I'll let you all know. I mean, I'll update this table with that information. And then also I'm going to have to figure out a way once free agency does start in October, I think it's October 18th is supposed to start, I will have to figure out a way to show that a player is off, that he has been signed now by a team or he's remaining with this team. So maybe I'll use a little cross out mark for their names or something, but there's going to be something to signify that this player is no longer available in free agency. But I'll still give you access to their data so you can kind of see. So again, this is just a quick data tool that you can start using. It's over on analyzingtheleague.com. Thank you. Paul Garcia. Have a great day.